Imagine standing in a crowded room, noise all around, everyone shouting their opinions, their problems, their demands. Now, picture yourself calmly sipping your drink, unbothered by the chaos. That's the essence of this book. The subtle art of not giving a isn't about being indifferent or careless. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing what truly matters in your life and letting go of the rest. Life throws endless challenges your way. Have some are worth fighting for, and others just drain your energy. This book will guide you on how to stop caring about the unimportant stuff and focus only on the things that bring meaning, growth, and happiness. It's not sugar coated or filled with cliches, it's raw, real, and refreshing. So as you dive into these pages, be ready to laugh, reflect, and maybe even feel a little uncomfortable. But most importantly, be ready to learn how to live a life that's truly your own. Chapter 1. Don't Try. In the opening chapter, Mark Manson introduces a provocative concept inspired by Charles Bukowski's famous epitaph, "Don't try." The chapter challenges the modern notion that we must constantly strive for more success, more happiness, more achievement. Manson argues that this endless pursuit often leads to dissatisfaction and frustration. Instead of trying to force ourselves into a mold of success defined by others, we should focus on what truly matters to us personally. Manson critiques society's obsession with self improvement, pushing us to believe we need to be better, richer, more attractive, and constantly achieving. While striving for success is not inherently wrong, it becomes a problem when it consumes us, creating unrealistic expectations and unnecessary stress. The chapter suggests that in the quest for constant self improvement, we often forget to accept our imperfections. The key message is that we should stop trying to live up to everyone else's expectations or trying to achieve goals that don't align with our true values. Instead of trying to be happy or perfect, we should embrace our flaws and limitations. By focusing on what truly matters and caring less about the trivial things, we can create a more meaningful and fulfilling life. Manson argues that happiness is not something you achieve by striving constantly, but something that comes from accepting life's challenges and focusing on what's truly worth our energy. Happiness is about finding what to care about deeply and letting go of everything else. Key takeaway: stop chasing the never ending cycle of improvement or societal approval. Choose to care only about what truly aligns with your personal values and embrace the imperfections that make you who you are. Chapter 2. Happiness is a problem. Mark Manson opens this chapter with a bold assertion. Happiness, as most people understand it, is a problem. Society often presents happiness as a permanent state we should constantly strive for, but Manson argues that this is both unrealistic and harmful. Happiness is not a final destination or something to achieve once and for all. Instead, it's a fleeting byproduct of solving meaningful problems. The chapter introduces the idea that life is inherently full of problems. When one issue is resolved, another naturally arises. Instead of seeking to eliminate problems altogether, the key to a fulfilling life is choosing better, more meaningful problems to tackle. This means letting go of the fantasy of a life free of pain and embracing the fact that struggles and challenges are a necessary part of growth. Manson highlights what he calls the feedback loop from hell. This loop occurs when people feel bad about feeling bad, for example, feeling anxious and then feeling guilty or frustrated for being anxious. This creates a downward spiral of negativity. To break free, Manson encourages readers to accept negative emotions as a natural part of life. Feeling bad sometimes doesn't mean something is wrong, it simply means you're human. The chapter critiques modern culture's obsession with constant positivity, which pushes the unrealistic notion that we should always feel good. This pressure to be happy all the time often leads to even greater dissatisfaction. Manson argues that life's imperfections and struggles are what give it meaning. By embracing discomfort and choosing worthwhile challenges, we can find deeper fulfillment and purpose. Happiness, Manson explains, comes from action. It is the process of working through meaningful problems that brings joy, not avoiding or escaping them. The more we focus on solving problems that matter to us personally, the more content we become. Key takeaway: happiness is not a permanent state or a goal to pursue. It is a natural result of solving meaningful problems. Accept that life will always have challenges, And instead of avoiding them, focus on choosing problems that align with your values and lead to growth and purpose. Chapter 3. You are not special. This chapter dives deep into the cultural obsession with individual exceptionalism, a mindset that has become increasingly prevalent in modern society. From a young age, many people are told they are special, unique, and destined for greatness. While this message might boost self esteem temporarily, it often sets unrealistic expectations for life. When reality doesn't align with these inflated ideals, it can lead to frustration, self doubt, and even a sense of entitlement. The narrative critiques the idea that being special somehow exempts individuals from life's struggles. Many grow up believing that they deserve happiness, success, or recognition without putting in consistent effort or facing challenges. This entitlement creates a false sense of superiority, leading to dissatisfaction when life inevitably proves to be more difficult and ordinary than expected. Another significant aspect explored in this chapter is the harmful role of comparison. In today's world, social media amplifies the tendency to compare ourselves to others. People often see the curated highlights of others' lives and mistakenly assume that everyone else is more successful, happier, or better off. This constant comparison fosters feelings of inadequacy, making it even harder to accept one's own life as it is. The chapter urges readers to let go of the need to feel special and instead embrace the ordinary. Accepting that you're not inherently better or worse than anyone else is a powerful realization. It frees you from the burden of comparison and allows you to focus on personal growth and meaningful connections. Life is not about being extraordinary in the eyes of others. It's about finding fulfillment in your unique journey, no matter how ordinary it might seem. This perspective doesn't diminish self worth, it redefines it. Instead of relying on external validation or chasing unattainable ideals, individuals are encouraged to ground their sense of self in reality. True happiness doesn't come from being exceptional, it comes from living authentically, working hard for what matters, and finding joy in the small, everyday moments. By accepting that you're not special, you can stop obsessing over living up to unrealistic expectations and start focusing on what genuinely brings meaning to your life. This approach encourages humility and self awareness, enabling you to embrace your imperfections, take responsibility for your actions, and grow into the best version of yourself, not because you're entitled to it, but because you've worked for it. Key takeaway: you are not inherently special. And that's a liberating truth. By shedding the pressure to be extraordinary, you can focus on what truly matters: authenticity, growth, and finding joy in the everyday challenges and triumphs of life. Happiness isn't about being better than others, it's about finding fulfillment in your own path. Chapter 4. The Value of Suffering. This chapter explores the central idea that suffering is an inevitable part of life, but its value lies in how we respond to it and the meaning we assign to it. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid suffering, thinking that pain and hardship are inherently negative. However, this chapter flips that perspective, arguing that suffering is not only unavoidable, but essential for growth, meaning, and fulfillment. Life will always involve struggles, challenges, and pain. The question isn't whether you will suffer, but what you will suffer for. The key to a meaningful life is choosing the right problems to deal with, problems that align with your values and contribute to a sense of purpose. Instead of running from discomfort or seeking to eliminate all pain, it's more important to ask, what is worth suffering for? The chapter introduces the concept of values and how they determine the kind of suffering we're willing to endure. For example, if you value deep relationships, you might endure the difficulties of emotional vulnerability. If you value physical fitness, you'll willingly suffer through intense workouts. The suffering itself isn't the reward, it's the meaning and growth that come from overcoming it. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of examining your values. Poor values, like seeking constant approval from others, material success at any cost, or avoiding discomfort altogether, lead to unnecessary suffering and unhappiness. Good values, on the other hand, are rooted in reality, constructive, and within your control. Choosing better values means choosing better problems to solve and ultimately finding more meaningful ways to experience life's inevitable struggles. Finally, the chapter addresses the tendency to view suffering as something unfair or to blame others for it. This victim mentality keeps people stuck and powerless. Instead, taking responsibility for your own suffering, even when it feels undeserved, gives you the power to shape how you respond to it. By owning your pain and seeing it as an opportunity for growth, you transform suffering into a valuable tool for self improvement and personal fulfillment. Key takeaway: suffering is a natural and necessary part of life. The goal isn't to avoid it, but to choose meaningful suffering, struggles that align with your values and lead to growth and fulfillment. By examining your values and taking responsibility for your challenges, you can transform pain into purpose. Chapter 5: You Are Always Choosing. This chapter emphasizes the idea that life is a series of choices, whether we realize it or not. Every action, reaction, and decision reflects a choice, whether it's conscious or subconscious. Even in situations where we feel powerless, we still have the ability to choose how we respond. This realization places responsibility for our lives squarely in our hands. The chapter begins by challenging the common tendency to blame external circumstances, other people, or even fate for our problems. While we may not always control what happens to us, we always control how we interpret and respond to those events. By recognizing this, we reclaim ownership of our lives and stop feeling like victims of circumstance. Taking responsibility for our choices doesn't mean blaming ourselves for everything. Instead, it's about acknowledging that we have the power to determine our path forward. Even when life throws challenges our way, whether it's a breakup, a failure, or an unexpected tragedy, we still have the ability to choose how we handle those situations. Will we let them define us, or will we use them as opportunities for growth? The chapter also highlights the importance of aligning our choices with our values. Often we make decisions based on convenience, fear, or the expectations of others rather than considering what truly matters to us. By becoming more intentional about our choices, we can focus on what aligns with our goals and priorities. This means saying no to things that don't serve us and taking responsibility for pursuing the things that do. A key point in this chapter is that not choosing is itself a choice. Avoiding decisions, ignoring problems, or procrastinating are passive choices that often lead to outcomes we don't want. The power lies in making active, conscious decisions, even when they're difficult. Ultimately, the chapter reminds readers that taking ownership of their choices, both good and bad, gives them the power to shape their lives. When we stop blaming others, circumstances, or luck for our situation and accept that we're responsible for how we respond, we gain the freedom to make better decisions and create a life that aligns with our values. Key takeaway: you're always choosing, whether actively or passively. Life's events may be out of your control, but your response is not. By taking responsibility for your choices and aligning them with your values, you gain the power to create a meaningful and fulfilling life. Chapter 6: You're Wrong About Everything, But So Am I. In this chapter, the author challenges the idea that we can ever truly know or be right about everything. It's a humbling reflection on the limitations of human understanding and the nature of our beliefs. We are all wrong about many things, and yet we often hold on to our beliefs as if they were absolute truths. This chapter encourages the reader to embrace the uncertainty of life and recognize that our perception of reality is always shaped by our own biases, experiences, and limitations. The chapter starts by addressing the ego and our tendency to be defensive about our beliefs. People often go to great lengths to defend their views, even in the face of contradicting evidence, because admitting we're wrong feels threatening to our sense of self. But the author suggests that acknowledging the possibility of being wrong is essential for growth and understanding. Instead of clinging to certainty, we should embrace the flexibility of doubt and be open to learning from others. By accepting that we're wrong about many things, we open ourselves up to the opportunity to reassess and update our beliefs. The chapter emphasizes that there is no such thing as a perfect worldview or a completely accurate perception of the world. Our personal experiences and the information we have at any given moment shape how we see things. As we grow, our understanding evolves, and we must be willing to let go of outdated or incorrect beliefs. The chapter also discusses the idea of fighting for your limitations. When we hold on to our beliefs too tightly, we can become trapped in mental rigidity. By constantly defending the beliefs we've grown attached to, we avoid the opportunity to change and improve. The more we defend our limitations, the less we can grow. The key to personal development is the willingness to admit we don't have all the answers and that we might be wrong. The chapter closes with the understanding that everyone is wrong in their own way, and that's okay. Life is about accepting the imperfection of our knowledge and using that humility to continue evolving. By acknowledging that we can be wrong and being open to different perspectives, we become more adaptable, open minded, and capable of learning from our mistakes. Key takeaway: no one is right about everything, and recognizing that you might be wrong is a crucial step toward growth. Embrace doubt, let go of rigid beliefs, and remain open to new perspectives. Humility and the willingness to be wrong are essential for personal development and a deeper understanding of the world. Chapter 7: Failure is the Way Forward. This chapter dives into the importance of failure and reframes it as an essential component of success. Many people fear failure, viewing it as something to be avoided at all costs. However, the author argues that failure is not only unavoidable, but also necessary for growth and progress. Instead of fearing failure, we should embrace it as a tool for learning and development. The chapter starts by challenging the common narrative that success is a linear path, one where you simply keep going up without setbacks. In reality, success often comes from a series of failures and mistakes. Each failure is an opportunity to learn, refine your approach, and move closer to your goals. The most successful people aren't those who avoid failure. They are the ones who are willing to fail repeatedly, learn from each mistake, and keep going. The chapter also explores the concept of failing forward. This means that each failure is not a dead end, but a step toward improvement. Rather than seeing failure as a reflection of personal inadequacy, it should be viewed as a sign that you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and taking risks. Failure helps you understand what doesn't work, which is just as valuable as understanding what does. By failing, you gain experience, refine your skills, and develop resilience. The author emphasizes that fear of failure often holds people back from trying in the first place. This fear leads to inaction and missed opportunities. It's easy to get stuck in a loop of self-doubt where you avoid taking risks because you're afraid of failing. However, the key to breaking free from this cycle is realizing that failure is not only acceptable, it's part of the process of achieving anything worthwhile. Another important point in this chapter is that the way we approach failure determines our ability to move forward. People who see failure as a personal defeat may become discouraged, but those who view it as a stepping stone to success are more likely to keep pursuing their goals. The key is to cultivate a mindset that treats failure as an inevitable and valuable part of the journey, not something to be ashamed of. Key takeaway: failure is not something to avoid, it's an essential part of growth. Embrace failure as a learning opportunity, fail forward, and keep moving toward your goals. Success is built on the lessons learned through failure, and by overcoming the fear of failure, you open the door to greater achievements and personal growth. Chapter 8: The Importance of Saying No. This chapter highlights the crucial role of boundaries in leading a fulfilling life. Saying no is often seen as difficult or selfish, but the author argues that it is, in fact, a vital skill for personal growth and well-being. The ability to say no allows you to prioritize what matters most to you and avoid being overwhelmed by obligations or distractions that don't align with your values. The chapter begins by explaining how saying yes to everything can lead to burnout and dissatisfaction. In a culture that values people pleasing and constant availability, it can be easy to fall into the trap of agreeing to every request or opportunity that comes your way. However, by doing so, you stretch yourself too thin, leaving little energy or time for the things that truly matter. Saying yes to everything often means saying no to the things that truly align with your personal goals and values. Saying no is a way to assert control over your life. It's not just about rejecting requests from others, it's about protecting your time, energy, and emotional resources. The author emphasizes that each no is a yes to something else. When you say no to something that doesn't align with your values, you make room for the things that matter most. Whether it's spending time with loved ones, focusing on personal projects, or taking care of your health, each decision to say no is a conscious choice to invest in what's truly important. The chapter also touches on the importance of being selective about the people and opportunities you allow into your life. Not everything deserves your attention or energy. Saying no is about being honest with yourself and others about your priorities. It's also a way of showing respect for yourself. When you say no, you're acknowledging your own worth and the importance of maintaining your boundaries. The author acknowledges that saying no can be uncomfortable, especially when it involves disappointing others. However, it's important to remember that it's impossible to please everyone, and trying to do so leads to resentment and exhaustion. Learning to say no is a necessary skill to maintain your well being and ensure that your actions align with your true values. Key takeaway: saying no is not selfish. It's essential for maintaining healthy boundaries and protecting your time and energy. By saying no to things that don't align with your values, you make space for what truly matters in your life. Learning to say no is a crucial step toward living intentionally and preserving your well being. Chapter 9: And Then You Die. In the final chapter, the author confronts the reality that life is finite. This chapter encourages readers to reflect on the inevitability of death and how acknowledging our mortality can profoundly shape how we live. By accepting that we will one day die, we can gain clarity about what truly matters and focus our energy on the things that bring meaning and fulfillment. The chapter begins by emphasizing the importance of facing death head on rather than avoiding the uncomfortable thought of it. We often live as though we have endless time, postponing what really matters, taking things for granted, or living in a state of perpetual distraction. The truth, however, is that time is limited, and we cannot afford to waste it on things that don't align with our true values. The author suggests that thinking about death forces us to evaluate our priorities. When we accept that our time is finite, we begin to appreciate the present moment and realize that the small, everyday choices we make matter. Death serves as a reminder to focus on what is truly important: our relationships, our passions, our contributions, and to let go of trivial concerns, fears, or the constant pursuit of superficial success. The chapter also highlights how our fear of death often leads to a fear of failure or discomfort. We may avoid taking risks or making bold choices out of a desire to protect ourselves from pain, failure, or loss. But by embracing death as an inevitable part of life, we free ourselves from the fear of these outcomes. Instead of avoiding challenges or seeking constant comfort, we can focus on living authentically and fully, knowing that every moment is precious. The idea of death isn't meant to be morbid or depressing. Rather, it's meant to encourage readers to live more intentionally. When we embrace the reality of our mortality, we stop procrastinating, stop wasting time on things that don't matter, and start pursuing what gives our lives purpose and meaning. Death is not an end to fear or avoid, but a motivator to live with greater clarity, urgency, and gratitude. Key takeaway: life is finite, and embracing our mortality can help us live more meaningfully. By accepting death as a part of life, we gain the clarity to focus on what truly matters, let go of trivial distractions, and live with greater purpose, urgency, and gratitude. Conclusion: the book challenges many conventional ideas about happiness, success, and life's struggles. It encourages you to embrace life's challenges, accept discomfort, and recognize that pain and suffering are inevitable but valuable parts of personal growth. By rejecting the unrealistic pursuit of constant happiness and perfection, you can focus on what truly matters: your values, the relationships you build, and the meaningful problems you choose to solve. In this journey, you'll realize that you're not special, but that's not a negative thing. It's liberating. By accepting that no one is immune to failure, rejection, or mistakes, you can approach life with humility, openness, and resilience. The freedom, the freedom lies in recognizing that you're always making choices, and by making better ones, saying no to distractions, embracing failure, and taking responsibility, you can live a life aligned with your true values. Ultimately, the book teaches that life is finite, and in acknowledging that, you can live with purpose and clarity. Let go of fear, stop waiting for the perfect moment, and start prioritizing what truly matters. Life is about choosing the right problems to solve, the right people to invest in, and the right causes to fight for. By focusing on what is important and saying no to the rest, you can build a life that is fulfilling, meaningful, and authentic.